I'm Michael Fox, and this is the Prospector News Podcast. And I am joined today by President and CEO of Tudor Gold, Ken Konkin. Welcome, Ken.
Thanks for having me back, Michael. It's always a joy to touch base with you and give you an update of our project in the Gold in the Triangle here.
Well, absolutely. And it's always a pleasure to talk to you. As my listeners will know, I'm a big believer in following those that are serially successful. And you, as a geologist, are one of those serially successful people that people in on the investment side of things should be following. But before we get into the meat and potatoes of the discussion, let's, as we always do, for those that aren't familiar with Tudor Gold, let's tell them who you guys are and what you're doing.
Well, we've got our great discovery and the story that's unfolding at Treaty Creek along the trend of the KSM largest undeveloped gold copper resource now in definitely North America and possibly the world. It is along the trend. It has very similar characteristics to those large open pitable deposits, including, in our case, a much higher grade content to it. So we're standing on the cusp of breaking through the 30 million ounce gold equivalent barrier. We're sitting at 27.9 million ounces of gold equivalent, of which there's a great copper component of 3 billion pounds, close to 3 billion pounds of copper component in one domain, our famous CS600 domain. So we've been drilling early. We like to get an early start just so we can leave room to keep going. So progress is underway. I think for the listeners out there, we're also a silver company because I don't emphasize this enough. And I had a lot of experience chasing silver with Silver Standard for 20 years with Bob Quartermain, and was one of the fortunate guys that jumped over from Silver Standard to be part of the creation of Pretium and the discovery of Valley of Kings, which is directly south of us. So yeah, serial, as we say, successful. I hope so. So good connotation to that word. Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, no, as I say, your career has been marked with success after success. So it's key that when we're talking to you, you know exactly what you're looking at and why it's going to succeed. So you just came out with a press release that is going to outlay what the plans for the company are going to be going forward here for the next 12 months. We all seem to be getting an earlier year jump up in the Yukon this year. It was a bit of a mild winter, and people could get into the field early.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, we typically would have had a snow road that we would have brought everything in through Brucejack Lake, our new good friends, best friends, Newmont, our neighbors to the south. So we looked at the snowpack and thought, well, just maybe fly the drills in. But in the end, we had to do a swap out on a genset. So Newmont came to our rescue and graciously allowed us the ability to flip out a genset for us. So we got an early start. And so snowpack at times helps you because you get a lot bigger bump in snow, and that means you keep roads available for kind of early spring access. But this year, we're actually drilling on the northwestern corner of the deposit where our grades are the largest. So we're hunting big fish here on this one. I've mentioned in the past that they're head and heart shots that count to convert of that 27.9 million ounces of 1.19 gold equivalent. We've got another 1.25 higher grade gold equivalent out there at 6.03 million ounces. So this is what we're trying to convert into the indicated category for our best shot or internal rate of return. But the big kind of star of the show is we're nicking kind of a tripod approach with our drill holes. We're going through not only doing that conversion of the highest grade possible, but we also are nicking our high grade systems, our supercells that we've identified. And there's more than one. We're glad to say we thought that we suspected this to occur, but until you get a tighter density on drilling that clearly was 100 to 150 meters apart, until you see a greater density, then you get a predictability. and expectation. So right off the hop in the very first drill hole, we had some visible gold in that hole, which was great to see. And what we now think are a sheet of parallel structures that do carry this, where we predicted the higher grades to be. So we are chasing supercell, which does have a great footprint over about 400 meters now, and we're steadily going through that, bringing in numbers that we hope to support that to be a true high-grade starter. So giving the project an economic edge, not just being this large bulk tonnage target, but what a way to go if you can take out 3-4 million ounces, for example, of gold, and take that as your starter and capex killer, I call these. And now we would be looked upon fondly by many mid-tier and junior mining companies, because we have that capacity to stretch out the capex over a longer period of time by going after the higher quality ounces or the higher grades. So this is what we're doing in part of converting that 6 million ounces of 1.25. But more importantly, equally importantly, I don't think there's an actually advantage to saying you need to know where your ore is, but you need to know where your dead rock is. You don't want to put plan ramps, things like that, in what would be prospectively well mineralized rock. So, it's a double-edged sword. You're really happy to see that you're still cutting grades, but then again, when you actually plan to say, well, we need a hole that's going to be showing the limit of this deposit, which needs to be in tombstone, it needs to be dead, so that you can effectively plan for advancing all your underground workings, which is what we're talking now with. We're going forward, and the language we're using is all the buzzwords you need for a really high quality preliminary economic assessment. And this is where all this is going to.
Yeah, that was one of the things that you noted in your list of goals for this year, is you're going to start on a PEA for this project. And as you like to talk about it, you're looking for the front door into the house that's going to eventually become this mine.
Exactly. And that's precisely the point of this part of this program. But the reality is, I don't think I'll ever in my lifetime drill off the Goldstorm deposit just because it's so large. We're just going to the aspects, to the pillars that host the heaviest mineralization, if you will, or the fountains or the source of the mineral. Now, the same thing happened at Valley of the Kings. We never drilled that off. It was still open at the bottom and at the eastern end. So it was just recognized that we had enough to go on to start. So like that, after this drill program, I think we'll be satisfied with what we find, that this is enough to go on to do a viable, high quality PEA. And that's the goal. The ultimate goal here is to do it, but do it well, but do it once.
Yeah, and there's nothing worse than, I find, is, you get companies that do a PEA, then a couple of years they redo the PEA again, and then redo it. It's better to do what you guys have done and wait till you have a pretty good idea of what your resource is looking like and what the mine potential is before going into that PEA study.
Well, you make an excellent point, Michael, because that's exactly what happened with the resource updates. We came out with the initial resource that was very similar to basically what's over the other side of the fence to the east of us or west of us rather, at Seabridge. And we had a 19.4 million ounces of 0.74, or close to 20 million ounces of 3/4 of a gram. Now, we've increased our cutoffs to the point where that doesn't even make the cutoff. We're now at 0.75. So we're really going after this thing as a very tight geological model. So we've been trading out ounces, the poorer quality ounces for the higher quality of ounces, and hitting lots of 2s and 3s. So this deposit, I've always said this, will be what it needs to be to become a mine, because you got the variability. The core strength of this thing is it does have a higher grade center to it. So, kind of in a way, when you take mining as a pragmatic approach to wealth in this sector, you would look at your best looking 12 years of production. This is what the attraction is, right? So it's not that we need more ounces. We just want to get the highest quality ounces possible. So again, all this language is looking like it should be a producer, like it will be a producer. Anyone that works with me has to share the one concept in their heads, and it's going to be a mine. It's just a question of how large. So this is the game that's afoot. We need to play that game. So the first resource, everybody thought we'd just be another basically low-grade bulk tonnage mine. So since then, we've turned this thing around and almost basically double that. I mean, we've gotten to 1.19 in a matter of just 3 more years of drilling. After 2 years of the initial resource that everybody just looked at as being, I don't know, kind of a marginal resource, now we came up with being over a gram. Why? We sat there and reverse engineered this thing. What does it need to be? Well, the engineering firm came back and said, yeah, guys, you got to be over a gram. It's got to be over a gram. So we did. And if you look at the 2 largest producers in Canada, the Detour mine and Malartic, well, they're all sub 1 gram. And the Detour is now, the head grade last time I checked, I think was 0.89. So yeah, we're now at 1.19. So we're definitely in that mining land kind of language and going higher. So each and every time we put out a resource, I don't think people really understood the increased quality of that resource, because we went initially from a 0.3 of a pit to a 0.5 on a pit to finally a 0.7 in a pit.
I learned something years ago from another serially successful geologist, Dr. Peter McGaw, and
oh yeah,
it was the importance of grade. The higher the grade, the less price sensitive the find is, because the higher grade can roll through a lot more lower prices than a lower grade mine can. So you don't have those risks of stops and starts in that mine. And that's one of the other things that I like about what you've done with this, is not only you adding ounces in the ground, but they're coming in at higher grades, so that they're a more valuable ounce in the ground, because they're less price sensitive as to being able to economically remove them.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've known Peter for decades. Met him in Mexico back when I was with Silver Standard, but he's absolutely accurate on that. Grade is extremely important, and we're concentrating on other subdomains like 300 North, much higher grade in gold. Also, Route 66, right near surface. These are all bodies that can be easily taken early in the mine plan. So clearly, you want your best looking ounces to go forward, so you can knock back that capex in all accounts. So absolutely true.
So, as our mutual friend Rick Rule always says, with your plans going forward, what unanswered questions are you looking for answers for, and what are those answers going to look like to be considered successful?
Well, everything I kind of alluded to would be the mining aspect, how we mine it from an underground perspective, the permitting, all of that very important. So we've got the database for all the baseline studies up to date. We've actually kept them alive and keeping refreshing all our water studies so that we're current with a PEA. So to be announced would be what happens when the PEA comes out. I think our approach is to go after the best engineering firms we can find that do incline sublevel block caves, and go for the best people who know how to place and construct mine infrastructure like mills, etc., all designed to give the best looking PEA that we can possibly look forward to being realistically achievable. So in my personal experience, try and get it as close to a pre-feas as possible. That's the goal.
Perfect. So, in using our earlier vernacular, you're going to know where the front door and the hallway and all the bedrooms are in this beast when we're done this summer.
Absolutely, and we'll share the keys to the wine room while we're doing it. So, yeah, definitely, we need to know everything about this front door, back door, where all the best grades are. It's always been a a challenge to know the distribution of your ounces, to know the quality of ounces, to know how you actually make the mine. The heavy lifting is almost over for the discovery. Let's be honest about that aspect. We're now looking at the vascular system of the high grade, how that applies, because for a large part, we've ignored it because we've gone after the bigger overlying sort of the elephant in the room here, literally, and identified Goldstorm. Now we're looking at all the plumbing, how that fits together with these late stage supercells, as I call them, that cut through it. So buckle up, stay tuned, and wait for some better, higher grade numbers coming up. That's the takeaway here.
Perfect. Look forward to the end of summer drill results. Those should be pretty exciting. And then the PEA will start when?
We don't know that. It's always when Goldstorm lets us out, but we're trying to curtail it to Q1, Q2 of 2025, because the aspect of doing a correct engineering approach, typically PEAs, they only apply about 2% to engineering. I'd like to actually do a lot better than that number so that people can actually look at the quality and examine the numbers themselves under scrutiny, as like everything is. So, and expectedly so. So we're going to step it up here and just do the best engineered approach to this and come out with a very solid number.
If people want to follow the drill and the exciting news is coming out of your company for the rest of the year, how would they do so, Ken?
Well, contact Chris Kern and also Patrick Donnelly, our new VP of Capital Markets, and Chris has been promoted to Vice President in Investor Relations, Corporate Development. So we'll be coming along with a new series of quick video of myself explaining the contents of the press releases. To a lot of people aren't exactly familiar with some of the technical aspects of the program. I'll just give a preempted message that will now accompany some of the press releases that we'll have coming out. So that's one of our goals. And also we'll be coming out with a bit of a newsletter, a monthly update to people, our shareholders, so they can look forward to seeing that. So we're going to start blitzing campaign for marketing is the goal here.
Perfect. Will people be able to sign up for that newsletter from your website?
Absolutely. We'll have that posted shortly. Chris and Pat are working on that as we speak. So definitely you're going to see a new look, new presentation material coming forward. And like I say, everything designed to what this thing should be in the end is Canada's largest producer is the goal here. We hope that we can achieve that.
Outstanding. Ken, always, it's a pleasure been talking to you. And I know you're going to be busy up in the bush this summer, and look forward to chatting again in the fall.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Michael. It's been a pleasure.
Tudor Gold is a paid sponsor of the Prospector News podcast.
The Prospector News podcast is for educational purposes only. The opinions expressed are those of the participants and are not to be taken as investment advice. Listeners need to do their own due diligence and seek advice of a licensed investment advisor.